Hi, welcome back to My Favorite Mistake. I'm Mark Graven. We're joined today by Ann Swanson. She is author of the internationally best-selling book Science of Yoga, which has been translated into over 15 languages. So that's wow. Don't want to sell that short. Over 15 languages. Her new book, Meditation for the Real World, talks about and illuminates the fascinating science behind meditation with step-by-step practices. So we'll get to talk about that a little bit later on. And we're going to hear more of Ann's story. Overcoming her own chronic pain and anxiety led her to India to study yoga and meditation, to China to explore Tai Chi, and to earn a Master of Science graduate degree in yoga therapy. So a lot of expertise and wisdom to tap into here today. And thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing well. So good to be here with you, Mark.
I'm glad that you're here. I'm going to be excited to explore these other topics, and thank you for sending me the books. They're beautifully illustrated and really impressive books. So thank you again for that. I hope people will go check them out.
My pleasure. I'm glad you like it.
So before we talk about the world of yoga and especially meditation, as we always dive into first here, Anne, with the different things you've done in your career, what would you say is your favorite mistake?
Mine's a mistake / an almost mistake.
Oh.
So it was this time of my life. I had just finished my graduate degree in yoga therapy and I was searching for a job. And I was getting job rejection after job rejection. I mean, I was well over 100 rejections in. I was, overqualified. You won't stay that long with it. I was so many different reasons. And I felt down as I was getting the job rejections, but I knew in my heart that there was a big opportunity coming my way if I was just patient for the right opportunity. And I just kept meditating and journaling, and I was reading self-help books. And my friends actually later, they told me that they were about to have an intervention with me because I was getting real woo-woo, believing that my meditation and my journaling was going to bring this into my life. And writing on my mirror words of what I wanted to feel and cultivating it despite all this constant rejection. And during this time, I got an email, and, I didn't think much of it. I think I put it in saved emails, like, oh, I'll get to this later, because I was so focused on finding an immediate job.
Yeah.
And I think I partly even thought it was just like a scam. They had to follow up a few weeks later.
Well, what did that first email say?
Well, I glanced at it, so I didn't even really see what it saw at that point. I was like, oh, they want me to do this thing. I don't have time for this thing. I'm looking for a job. And so then I dove into it the second time when they followed up. I'll remember it was Valentine's Day. And I looked at it and I was like, wait a second. This is a book offer, a book contract from one of the biggest publishers in the world. This is from DK. It's part of Penguin Random House. Out of the blue. I didn't have an agent. I didn't have a big social media following. I didn't have a book proposal, but they had a book proposal that is exactly the book I would have written. It was Science of Yoga. Yeah. I had just gotten a master's degree in the science of yoga, right? So that's the perfect opportunity to bring together all that I had just learned and traveled the world to learn. So I looked closer. I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't have written this proposal better. This is as if I wrote it. And so I ended up, last minute signing this book contract and going with writing that book, which now has been translated into over 15 languages and is really widely used in yoga teacher trainings and for people getting into yoga. But it's funny that I was so focused in on what I thought was going to be the manifestation of my dreams, which was, getting a job at a spa or at a college teaching a course on yoga. I thought that was it. And if I had gotten any of those other jobs, there's no way I would have had time to get this. So each one of those rejections now in retrospect, I see as paving the path for me to have this contract. But I mean, my mistake was not reading closely, not being more open to my dream coming true in a different way than I imagined. And it was a near mistake. I almost slipped up on that. They during that time could have been talking to other authors.
Mm-hmm. I that's I think it's fascinating when someone even knows about a near mistake story, because it's possible you would have never known it was. I mean, we use the phrase near miss, but in this case, it would have been a near success.
Yeah.
That if you had ignored or been too skeptical about the second email, you would have, I'm sure, found another job, and you wouldn't have known you had made that mistake. You probably would have never dug up the email again, right?
Yeah, maybe. But it changed my life. It changed the trajectory of my life from there.
Wow. I mean, there's I think a lesson there about things happen for a reason, or being in a place where you could accept that opportunity to
Yeah.
work on the book. Like, I don't know if there's any thoughts that come from your study of yoga or meditation, or if that's just Ann's reaction and worldview of why or how opportunities might appear.
I believe that I was setting myself up to be in the right, vibration, alignment, energy, openness to bring in the perfect opportunity. Despite the rejections, I
Mm-hmm.
was resilient in that time. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, I did have some tears. I was not like
Yeah.
perfect during that time. It was very hard to get 100 rejections right after I just
Mm-hmm.
spent all this money on a graduate degree.
Mm-hmm.
But I was meditating, getting in touch with what do I truly want? And the words I was writing on the mirror were things like creativity. I need a project that's true
Mm-hmm.
creativity. I want something artistic and scientific, right? And I originally went to art school. So to be able to work with some of the best illustrators and designers in the world on science of yoga, it was really a treat for me. So all
Yeah.
the words that I wrote on the mirror were exactly what I brought into my life. And it sounds woo-woo, right?
It
Like, oh, you
does.
manifest it. But if you think about it, and when you look into the science of it, when we have a goal in our business or in financials, we
Mm-hmm.
set the goal and then we are focused in on it. And then when we see opportunities that align with that goal, we go with it. And when we see things that don't, we don't go with them, right? We have this direction, this compass.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think I created during that time through my meditations and my journaling and my writing on the mirror, was
Yeah.
this internal compass that attracted it into my life. And that's why my friends who went to graduate school with me and studied science with me, they were like, we're going to have an intervention because you were going off the
Yeah.
deep end being woo-woo. But I am convinced, I'm convinced that just like setting a goal with your business or finances,
Mm-hmm.
it truly works in your life and other aspects too.
Yeah. It seems like there's an important lesson there of, like I said, you were um, aiming to bring, I guess I'll use this phrase, manifest these things you wanted to happen, but it was more of that general direction of like, how were those, I would call them wishes. You were wishing for something. It would be
Intention.
easy to have a blind spot of, well, no, I wasn't wishing for a book, but you didn't know you were meant to be wishing for a book, but you were doing it in like this indirect way, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And the more I've read about how to, sculpt your life and create the life of your dreams, as well as the business and finances of your dreams, is we want to have a direction, but we want to be flexible, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I want to focus on how do I want to feel? How do I want my life to be? And that's really what I was doing, is like, I want it to be creative. I want it to be incorporating all the knowledge that I had. I knew what I wanted. I didn't know how it would come about.
Yeah.
And ultimately I became open to the different ways, but at first I almost made that mistake.
So how do you, I guess now you have to guard against not making that mistake at some point, now that you're aware of the possibility of some other offer or opportunity comes in.
Yeah. Now, I like the advice that Taylor Swift gives to any budding singer.
Mhm.
They're like, oh, what advice do you have? I want to be a singer like you. Get a good lawyer. That's what she says.
Oh,
I think to have somebody to consult with to look, is this contract bogus?
mhm.
And that's what I did is I found a lawyer immediately and I was like, is this contract bogus? Because I do
Yeah.
get bogus offers for book contracts where you have to pay to write it or
Mhm.
it's a scam in some way. And so I asked him, he's like, nope, this is legit. And same now as, I've gotten some offers where I'm like, this doesn't seem right. And
Mhm.
sometimes I'll get, that's not very good. That's not right. But just
Yeah.
to have somebody that's an expert to look at it, that's really helpful to get that consult.
Yeah. So, did you, at some point in those discussions, either before or after signing the contract, get an answer to the question of, "Hey, how did you find me?"
Yeah, I did. I did. So they found me through a random article that I wrote
Mm.
for free or for $20. You don't get paid
Mhm.
very much for writing like yoga articles online.
Mhm.
But they found me in the bio under the article, which was a very science-based article. I don't know exactly which one it was, but on the bio under it said that I had a master's of science in yoga therapy. And they were looking specifically for somebody with a master's degree in the field. And guess
Mhm.
what? I just graduated from the very first master's program in the field. So there are only like 28 of us in
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
world that could have qualified.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, not to sidetrack it too much. I have a similar story of how my first book came to be about
Yeah.
healthcare improvement. It's a book called Lean Hospitals. I had been blogging, and I was found by a publisher in an indirect way. It was through a personal introduction, where that publisher was wanting somebody to write a book in a certain direction on a certain theme. And they'd reached out to my friend Dean, and he said, "No, that's probably not me, but you should talk to Mark." So
Yeah.
I think having that go between, I didn't have any sort of, "Hey, is this a scam?" Detectors going off. But thankfully, I was in the right place and time to be able to accept that opportunity. That I mean, it kind of fell in my lap, and I know people who have written a book and then really struggled to find a publisher. And then if they ask, "Well, how did you do it?" I almost don't want to tell my story. They're like,
I
"Well,
feel
they
that way
found me."
too sometimes is that I don't want to tell because I can't give advice on how to get a book contract. Like I can't.
Yeah.
My way was not the traditional way. Although
Yeah.
publishers do have specific titles based off of SEO and what's going to do
Mhm.
well in the market that they know they want written and then they look through authors. That does happen. It's
Yeah.
more rare.
Yeah.
But I think that my story highlights the importance of really being focused in on your desires and then believing in yourself and sticking with it, being resilient amidst the failures.
Yeah. Um, And maybe we can transition to talking about meditation in your new book. I'm guessing during those hard times with getting the rejection, meditation was one of the coping strategies or ways of building resiliency.
Absolutely. Meditation has helped me through that time, other dark nights of my soul. It
Mhm.
helps me through daily, I'm feeling like overwhelmed, doom scrolling. And that's ultimately what this new book is about. Meditation for the real world is it's real world situations. You're about to walk on stage and you're feeling nervous. You are grieving the loss of a loved one. You're feeling social anxiety at an event, real life situations, and how to
Mhm.
integrate short meditations to be able to target that. So, even like a minute meditation makes a
Mhm.
huge difference when you
Mhm.
place it in that moment when you're feeling down or you're feeling anxious.
Mhm. So, would an example of an opportunity for a short meditation be? Let's say you're in a short line at the grocery store, and instead of pulling the phone out of the pocket and scrolling, whether it's doom
Yes,
scrolling or fun scrolling, to fit
exactly.
meditation into your day?
And on the cover of Meditation for the Real World, there's a woman. She's sitting with her feet grounded down. She's sitting tall. She looks relaxed amidst all these other people on a subway, all hunched over their phones and computers, distracted. She's the
Mhm.
only one that looks peaceful, right? She's got headphones on. Maybe she's listening to a guided meditation. Maybe she's
Mhm.
listening to a song that's really getting her to be present. You can have your eyes open. It can be loud. You can be seated in a chair. You could be standing in line. And one quick meditation you can do for these sort of circumstances is your five senses meditation. So we can do it right now in less than a minute. As you're listening to this, whether you're driving, walking, sitting, doesn't matter. I want you to notice what you see. Just notice it with a new vision. If you're staring at a screen, look out the window, allow your vision to broaden. Our eyes are not meant to be on these small little screens all the time. Let the vision expand. And now notice what you hear. You're welcome to close your eyes if you're safe to do so that you can tap into that sound. What do you hear from far away to up close? My voice, maybe even your own breath, sounds in your room. Notice what you hear. Take a deep inhale through the nose. Notice any smells. Keep breathing through the nose as you notice any tastes that are present. You might have to search for it, but just tap into that sense of taste. And then bring the awareness to your body. Feeling your bodily sensations. You might even feel the urge to sit taller or do a little movement as you become aware of how your body feels right now. And pay attention internally. Maybe you feel your heart beating, your blood pumping, your breath moving you. And if your eyes are closed, now open them again and take in all your five senses simultaneously. What you hear, see, smell, taste, and feel. And then moving forward with this conversation, with your day, with that new sense of awareness. So it becomes like a reset button for your nervous system. When you're noticing you're really distracted and out of it, to come back into flow state.
I didn't realize we were going to meditate. That was nice. I mean, for those who were those who were watching on YouTube will see I closed my eyes, and I can say I meditated.
Yeah, a minute counts. You get immediate physiological benefits. We have endorphins release. We change our brain activity immediately when we start meditating. You went from this kind of more chaotic thinking brainwave activity of beta brain waves to alpha, which is more relaxed and at ease. We changed the way your heart was beating. You probably slowed down. Your blood pressure went down, all in less than a minute.
I could go at some point look at my Apple Watch data. I won't do it right now.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, would you expect like your respiration rate probably slows as well?
Yes. Some meditations you're told to slow it, but this one I didn't tell you to. But you might have noticed that happened naturally, that your breath started to slow down. Your brain started to slow down.
Yeah. And so I was going to ask this. This is a good time to do so. Like during the pandemic, I think when a credit card company had said, "Hey, have a free subscription to this meditation app." There's many of them, but it's a popular one. I don't know if it's good, but I tried it and I thought, well, okay, in theory, this I think would help during uncertain, stressful times. I really struggled with it.
What was hard for you?
What was hard?
Yeah, what was the struggle for you?
Well, I think one reflection is, I think in general, like starting with a 1-minute meditation is less intimidating.
Yeah.
I think I was dialing up, a 15-minute guided meditation, and then I just didn't feel like I could focus that long. And this is what I was going to ask you of like, is that if you find your mind wandering, is that a meditation mistake? Is that a problem? Is that something you maybe get better at?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Is that even the wrong way of framing it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a really great question because it's probably the most common question. All your listeners are wondering this too. But it's a myth that meditation is stopping your thoughts. it is not stopping your thoughts. So meditation is a process, and I have a nice graphic in the book that explains this. So it's not just when you're focusing on the one thing. So your teacher may give you, a word to repeat, you're focusing on your breath, or as I just gave you, each sense, we were going into each sense. So that was our one thing we were focusing on, right? So your teacher gives you usually something to focus on. And we think that's the meditation. And if my mind wanders, then I'm not doing it right. But really, that's the first step. Second step, always, inevitably, no matter how advanced of a meditator you are, second step is spontaneous thought. Your mind will wander. The third step is critical. So the third step, our brain picks up this network of activity that determines, is that important or not? So my mind is wandering to what I'm going to eat later, or my list of things to do. Is that important for this 1 minute or this 10 minutes that I've devoted to this? No, right? My mind is wandering to the smell of smoke and the fact that there might be a fire in the house. Is that important? Yes. Get out of the house, stop meditation, right? So you're going to determine, is this important or not? So once you strengthen that network to come back to focus on the focal point, you're building this new muscle, this new ability in your brain to be able to recognize when your mind wanders, which we don't always do through the day. We just believe our thoughts. And then to redirect back to your focal point. And your focal point during the day could be, your work project or paying attention to your kids, right? So it helps us to get into that flow state, that awareness during our everyday activities too, because we're strengthening the network activity to notice and come back to focus. So really, it's boot camp for your focus. If your mind is wandering a lot, that just means you're getting a great workout. You're getting a great workout of that neural network activity that's necessary to come back to focus.
Yeah. My focus here is on you and what you're saying and our conversation, and that's easy to focus on. I don't feel any urge to flip over and peek at my email or something here while we're doing this. But in a large group meeting, though, that's a different thing. We're like here, we're very active. We're both very actively engaged in this discussion. In work settings, there are times where our participation is much more passive. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on what you've learned on regaining focus in a situation like that, where it's more challenging than a one-on-one discussion might be?
Well, nobody needs to know you're meditating. Just like we were saying, you're in line or you're sitting on a subway, rather than scrolling while you wait, meditate while you wait. So what we can do is, while we're in this Zoom meeting, say you're on the meeting or they could see your camera, but I do top secret underground Zoom yoga. I'll move my ankles a little bit. Nobody needs to know I'm doing it. I'll do some breathing, nice slow breathing. Be aware of my posture. So you can bring your focal point to your 5 senses. You can use all these techniques during that meeting, and you're basically meditating while you're in the meeting. So nobody needs to know that you are, for example, this is a good one. No one needs to know that you're doubling your exhales. This is a really great way to relax your nervous system, is to inhale for, let's start with 3 counts. Inhale, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and continue that on your own. Doesn't have to be exactly. It could be 3 count inhale, 5 count exhale, but just longer exhale than the inhale. Nobody needs to know that you're doing that during the meeting. And now you're getting these benefits of the breathing practice and the focus.
And your eyes stay open, and there's no risk that you suddenly what? Oh, sorry.
It'll keep you awake too. Yes, exactly. It'll keep you awake.
I may try that. So I will try that sometime. And I was going to ask also, like, when it comes to developing, practicing meditation and sort of developing your skills there. It says in your bio that meditation didn't come easy to you. I was wondering if you could share some of that story with us.
Yeah, I, by nature, as a child, I was very anxious. I've always dealt with anxiety and chronic pain, which makes meditation and sitting still hard. And
Hmm.
so I didn't come to meditation for meditation. I came to yoga for the physical practice.
Hmm.
And when we get to the point in the yoga class where we were meditating, I'd look down at my watch. I'm like, it is time to go. I have things to do. This is a waste of time. Like, I did not get it. But over time, teachers would introduce different techniques. And every once in a while, one of them would work for me.
Hmm.
And I'd be like, whoa, that's what it feels like to really relax, to really let that weight off my shoulders and be present. And as I got tastes of it, I wanted more and more. But it took a while of different techniques. So if you've tried meditation before and you don't think it worked for you, you might just not have been doing the right technique for you or the right technique in that situation. And that's why I
Or
wrote Meditation for the Real World is
yeah,
different situations, 83 techniques you can try out.
yeah. Oh, I'm going to try others, and I was being too hard on myself. I had too high
Yeah.
expectations, and I got frustrated and gave up on it. That's
Yeah,
on
that's
me.
common.
That's not on the meditation.
Yeah, that's common, but also people try to do the 15 minutes, like you said. And I say start like with 5 to 10 max.
Hmm.
So for your listeners, I have a gift at meditationfortherealworld.com, and that's the meditation challenge. And those meditations, it's 10 minutes a day, but I give you a little context and science. So their meditations are only about 7 minutes.
Hmm.
And I integrate music and
Hmm.
nature sounds that have been engineered to optimize your brain waves for the practice so that if you have trouble focusing, it can help you get into that state better. So we use the science of sound also.
Yeah, I hope people check that out. I'll put a link. I'm going to check it out. I'll put a link in the show notes. And I want to talk a little bit about, since you know the science of yoga and you know about meditation. Some of my experience was my wife encouraging me. My wife's been practicing yoga for 20
Yeah.
years, classes, and I think she's fairly advanced. And she was encouraging me to try it, and like you said, Anne, physical reasons, lower back. I'm 50, or I was approaching 50, and like flexibility and everything is, and there have been great benefits from that of doing restorative yoga, yin yoga for listeners who don't know, very slow, long holds of poses. And as my journey there, what you said sounded familiar. And at first, I would do 25 minutes and then 5 minutes savasana, and it would all feel like it was forever. Or I'd be laying there and I would feel fidgety, and like, how long is this 5 minutes of laying here? What is that doing for me? But
Yeah.
then now, honestly, the 25 minutes goes pretty quickly. I think the savasana. Like, I'm a fidgety. I'm always moving physically or mentally, but like I've gotten much better after about 2 years, and especially getting into daily practice. That was one of my lessons of like doing it occasionally might feel okay, but like there's something to be said for doing that every single day. Really connected to some definitely physical benefits, but to me, that's also been, I think, my meditation, even though I wouldn't
Yeah.
say I'm
Moving
meditating,
meditation. Yeah.
and being still during those
Yes.
poses. And that's been very beneficial for me, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things you build up over time. So you get started, and even if just you're doing 1 minute meditations, that
Mhm.
counts. You're getting those immediate effects. We did one today. You felt the immediate effects. So integrating them into your life could make a really big impact. And starting small is the way to go. And as you feel the impacts, as you go into that meeting with more clarity, you play with your kids or help them with their homework with a greater sense of purpose and connection because of that 1 minute meditation. You're going to be more likely to do it, right? As you see these results.
Mm-hmm. What does the science say about, if you will, like the mind body connection of being able to get different benefits from meditation, if that helps with anxiety or attention,
Yes.
and does that flow through then into ways that anxiety, tension manifests, in terms of physical symptoms?
It absolutely does. It said when there's a problem in the body, the answer's in the mind. So chronic
Mm-hmm.
pain actually meditation has been the biggest thing to help me with my chronic pain, because when pain becomes chronic, it is no longer because of tissue damage, right? Like you didn't just burn your hand. It's because of a misinterpretation of your nervous system of what's going on. Like my 99-year-old grandpa, he has arthritis probably in every joint of his body, but he doesn't actually have pain. And then here I am in my 30s with this intense pain, right? It doesn't always, it really rarely makes sense. So we want to retrain our nervous system when it has to do with pain. And then there's said when there's a problem in the mind, the answer is in the body. Like when you're feeling really anxious, we know that exercise, yoga, working out really helps. Go for a run. It really helps. Walking meditation. You don't have to sit still to meditate. There's a whole section in Meditation for the Real World on walking meditation and movement meditation. So the mind-body connection is very clear at this point. And some of the most profound research to support meditation is on mental health and chronic pain, as we just talked about. Also, cardiovascular health helps lower your blood pressure, helps to lower your cholesterol, improve your heart rate variability, lessen your risk of heart disease, or even reverse the effects. So meditation is a critical component for really stress management. When we have better cardiovascular health, we have better stress management. It's helpful to every system of your body, and then it bleeds into your life, and you'll notice relationships getting better, your sleep getting better, your emotional regulation, less road rage and that sort of thing coming up. Yeah.
You used a term there. I was going to ask you the meaning or the science of heart rate variability. My wife pretty recently started wearing a ring that does a lot of the same measures that my Apple Watch does. And I think she was looking at the app and she was like, how's your heart rate variability? I'm like, I've never looked at that. I've looked at my heart rate, sleep, and other things. And what's the importance of heart rate variability? Is more variability bad? Or
I know you would think intuitively more variability would be bad, but it's actually good for there to be a variability between your heartbeats. And that's what heart rate variability in essence measures. We want our heart to be able to be resilient and respond to whatever situation. So somebody with really high heart rate variability, it's one of those measures. We actually want to be high compared to breath rate. It's better to be low or heart rate low. It's high is better. And so with really high heart rate variability, when you're running up the stairs and then you sit down, your body is going to be able to change your heart rate really quick. And then you stand up, all of a sudden, it's going to change to those circumstances. It's ready at any moment to be variable and resilient to whatever comes its way. So exercise helps heart rate variability, but also meditation, teaching your heart how to slow down amidst the chaos is really helpful for your heart's resilience. So we want our heart to be able to go from very, very slow to fast when we need it. And that's what that represents. So we want heart rate variability to be high. It tends to, depending, for men, it's a little higher. Different stages of life, it goes higher or lower. So those, at night, it tends to be a little bit better. So it's going to be different depending on what you're doing. But overall, we want it to be higher.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's more data, more things to learn about with their body. It's not what are these measures, but what does it mean? So I'll go look at that. And it seems like there's a parallel between, let's say, recovery time from strenuous exercise and recovery from a stressful moment that may get your adrenaline or stress hormones going. Heart rate maybe goes up. How quickly do you kind of get back to baseline?
Exactly. And that's where these meditations, these brief meditations, they could be less than a minute, a couple breath meditation of elongating your exhales, as we said, that could help you calm down after a stressful event. Our body naturally does it. We're like, right? But that's kind of stressful. We do it right out of our upper chest. We don't get the full lung capacity. So to mindfully elongate your exhales can help with that resiliency, help slow your heart rate and lower your blood pressure immediately after a stressful event.
Yeah. I'm going to tell a quick mistake story real quick. It was probably about 2 years ago. I had gotten some bad news work wise, and it was on a Zoom call, right? So, body language is a factor too. And I thought I was taking a pause and a deep, calming breath, but it looked like an eye roll, and it sounded like. So to your point about the slow exhale is would
Yes.
have been less audible, and
That's dramatic.
that,
You
that
were very dramatic.
it caused a little trouble for me. I didn't mean it to be, so I guess I wasn't in touch with how I was reacting or my emotions there. So maybe after practice of yoga and now maybe with the help of your book, thank you again, Anne, for sending it. I can be more resilient in those moments. And when you talk about emotional regulation, that was a
And thank
test
you for
that maybe I failed.
yeah, well, thank you for sending me your book, a signed copy at that.
Oh, you're welcome. And so that's maybe one other question here, because I like asking authors about the process of the book and combining a couple themes here. I mean, it's inevitable there's going to be mistakes in the
Mm.
process of writing or editing, or is there any story that comes to mind now as a
Oh
multiple
my
time
gosh. Oh my
author?
gosh, I have the biggest story and I've never told it before.
Oh,
All
we get a
right.
bonus mistake story.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, Science of Yoga, my first book. Um, I was, proud of it, but it was like 80-hour work weeks for 6 months. That's how long
Mhm.
that we had to write it. That all their books, it's like 3 months of writing, 3 months of editing. That's it.
Yeah,
It's very rushed.
yeah.
And so when it came out, I let it sit for a while. I was feeling good. And then one day I opened it up, I was reading through, I was like, oh, these images are so pretty. And I found a mistake, like a really obvious, like factual,
Mm.
it was a typo that made the whole sentence wrong
Mm.
about muscle physiology. Like anybody from Basic 101 would know that. And I was like, oh my gosh. And one word fix and it would be better.
Yeah.
And I started having bad dreams. I
Uh-oh.
was having dreams about the shipment of books coming from whatever factory in
Yeah.
China they print them at, in a ship, and it catching fire. And I was like, this is horrible, because this means people die to not have the shipment of books go
Right.
out. Like, this is the worst. I was not able to sleep. I
Mm-hmm.
was just obsessing over this mistake. I'm going to get so many negative reviews. I was nervous about the people in my field that I sent books to, sample books of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, the book came out, and, I guess I've gotten some critical reviews. Nobody's ever noticed it.
Mm.
And the second print, they
Is it
fixed it. It took like
okay?
a few
Yeah.
months for them to have a
Yeah.
second print, but they
Yeah.
fixed it second print, and that's great. But I never got a negative review. Nobody ever said a comment. No, it was just this like thing that I obsessed over. And I actually, I feel like that was my mistake, was obsessing over it, because the thing that you think people are going to notice is not what they're going to notice.
Right.
And I mean, I got depressed and anxious, and
Yeah.
meditation got me through that time. It really did. And I think
Yeah.
whatever author there is, I've heard stories of authors going from bookshop to bookshop with whiteout pens or erasers, scratching out the mistakes. I've heard stories. This is not an uncommon feeling,
Yeah.
because once it's done, it's done. Like, you don't get to fix it like a blog post.
Yeah. Or like you said, that other printing. But I mean, my books are not through a major publisher. Amazon doesn't let me into their warehouses to go and try to
Yeah,
redo.
you've
But,
thought about it too.
there is a difference. But when I had traditionally published books, that first edition of my first book, the first printings, had a typo on page 1. And I swear it wasn't in the manuscript. I think the typo got injected during the
Oh my
page
God.
layout process. But I know another author through a major publisher who also, typo on page 1. So like, all right,
Okay.
get it out of the way.
I haven't
Um,
told anybody this either, but it looks like there's a typo on the back of the new book. I'm not going to tell you what it is now. You just have to get the book to see.
uh,
On the back of A Meditation for the Real World, it's not a typo, but I remember, you don't, as an author for a major publisher, you don't get to write the front or the back of the book. You don't I got a final say, but I had to be pushy even to get that final say. Like, you don't get to write it. And so they wrote it. And I remember looking at the first word. So not even just on the back cover, but the first word. I remember being like, that's a weird word to put there. Is that a typo? And then I thought about it and I looked it up. I was like, yeah, I mean, that word could mean that. Okay, maybe that's something they say in the UK. They'll change it for the US edition. So it's come out. I've gotten only close friends. My brother and a couple close friends have been like, oh man, real bummer about that typo in the back cover. And I'm like, it's not a typo. But I thought it was weird too. So anyways, if you see that on the back, it's not a typo, but it is a weird word to start the back cover. Authors do not get to write that.
Not Ann's fault. But final thing, I mean, it's just like, author to author, even some of the first printings of The Mistakes That Make Us had a couple small little typos, one very minor factual error. I will, but okay, nothing that discredits the entire book. It was a very minor thing. But I do know, like, if flip to a certain page and look for a certain thing, I know the person with that book was one of the very first to buy it. And I can thank them for that. So maybe you can turn that into a positive. If you see somebody with a copy that has, you don't have to maybe tell them what you were looking for, but.
Well, they say that the first print, first edition of every book is the most valuable, and it is because it has those little typos and mistakes. So if you're a book collector, and even if you can get a signed copy of a first print, first edition, that's why they're so valuable. And I think that that's a really great lesson to the theme of your show, is that mistakes are what makes something so special. The later editions, they're not as valuable.
And I think your point about not obsessing over the mistake after the fact is a really good lesson, a helpful reminder. So, well, thank you for that, Ann. This has been fun. So our guest today, Ann Swanson, is the author of Science of Yoga, new book, Meditation for the Real World. There's probably another book in your future?
There is. But yeah, definitely want to remind your listeners to go to meditationfortherealworld.com. That's where you can get the meditation challenge. It's really special, and I think you'll be able to stick with it. It's 5 days, less than 10 minutes a day.
I'm going to sign up too. So again, there'll be links in the show notes to the books, Ann's website, social media, and more. So, Ann, thank you for doing this today. Thank you for the education. Thank you for the meditation. This has been great.
Thank you.